We chose 21st Century Thinking About Leadership and Management. This is created by Savannah Ridinger, Sarah Costley, Hannah Brazer, Kimberly Stewart, and John Iroller. For the introduction, nursing has always been required to respond to the changes that we see in technology and social forces. Just in the last decade, there has been a growing and elderly population, healthcare reforms, reduction in federal and state government reimbursement, as well as commercial insurances. Major redesigns of most healthcare organizations as well, with an emphasis being placed on the business side of things. This also requires that managers are skilled communicators, organizers, team builders, visionaries, and proactive in preparing for emerging new threats that come each day. According to the article titled "Concern Over Nursing Shortage Grows," it states that the Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates that there will be 1 million jobs opening for registered nurses by 2024. Because of the current healthcare system and organization complexity, most of the 21st century nurse leader managers will need to improve and add to their leadership skill toolbox to meet emerging challenges in the coming decade. Strength-based leadership and positive psychological movement. The most effective leaders surround themselves with the right people and that they maximize their team. These would be people who have different strengths than they do. Effective leaders must also engage their followers in activities that allow their strengths to grow and for employees to be empowered and be successful. Strength-based leadership focuses on the development or empowerment of workers. Strength is opposite to their weakness or areas of need growth. Level 5 leadership is a concept that was developed by Jim Collins after a study was done to determine what separates a good company from a great company. It was found that there are 5 levels of leadership skills that may be present in any organization. Truly great organizations, however, typically have leaders who pose the qualities found in all 5 levels. Level 1, high capability individual. Level 2, contributing team manager. Level 3, complete manager, competent manager. Level 4, effective leader. Level 5, great leader. They all demonstrate humility and seek success for the team rather than for self-serving purposes. Servant leadership. Servant leadership is put serving others, including employees, customers, and the community, as the number one priority. Therefore, servant leaderships are more concerned with the needs of others rather than themselves, and they lead through their service. There's many qualities for servant leaders, and they're listed on the slide. Servant leaders may have developed over 35 years ago, but they still continue to greatly influence the leadership and thinking in the 21st century. New thinking about leaders and followers. Followers greatly influence the actions of leaders in a positive and negative ways. The positive effects of the followers on the leader is well described, but there is less discussion about the potential negative effects on the followers. One huge issue is that the followers can mislead their leader, intentionally or unintentionally. While this issue may never be fully overcome, leaders can counteract this. undesirable impact by focusing on vision, cultivating truth-telling, and making sure followers feel like they can disagree with them or with others. The principal agent theory. The principal agent theory emerged in 1960s to 1970s and is still being studied. This theory suggests that not only followers are naturally motivated to act in the best interest of their leader and employer, this may be the result of knowledge advantage over the leader or the agent's own preferences that do not align with the principles. Because the agent does not have the leader's best interest at heart, the agent may pursue their own interests first. For this reason, it is important for leaders to identify and provide agents with appropriate incentives to act in the organization's best interests instead of their own. For example, although most employees do not work overtime after a long busy shift, its reality is that doing so typically results in financial reward. Employers then must either create incentives that they reward employees who are able to complete their work in allotted time, or create incentives for those who do not. Human and social capital theory. The human capital refers to the attributes of a person which are productive in some economic context, although it is normally measured and conceived as part of private return to an individual as well as a social return. However, human capital can be viewed from the organizational perspective as well. In this case, human capital refers to the collective group of knowledge or experience. The human and social capital theory suggests that the individuals and/or organizations will invest in the education and professional development if they believe in such investment will have a future payoff. For an example, a hospital may pay an ASN nurse to further their education and earn their bachelor's degree in nursing for a BSN. Not only does it benefit that nurse, but also it benefits the hospital that they will have a more educated and skilled nurse working for them. This will lead to an increased quality of care and higher retention rates, both of which translate to higher productivity and financial return to the hospital. Researchers found that every 10% increase in the proportion of nurses on the hospital staff with a BSN was associated with a 4% decrease in risk of death. Emotional intelligence. Theory makes an argument that being able to recognize and manage our emotions as well as those of others and handle relationships are essential soft skills for today's workplace. Mayer and Salwati suggest that emotional intelligence is comprised of appraising and expressing emotions in the self of others, regulating emotion in self and others, and using emotion in adaptive ways. Bowman identifies the following as the components for EI, which is emotional intelligence. One is self-awareness, or the ability to recognize and understand one's moods, emotions, and drives, as well as their effects on others. Two, self-regulation, the ability to control and redirect disruptive impulses or moods, as well as potency to suspend judgment. Three, motivation, which is a passion to work for reasons that go beyond money or status. A propensity to pursue goals with energy and commitment. Four is empathy, the ability to understand and accept the emotional makeup of other people. And five, the social skills, or proficiency in handling relationships and building networks and the ability to find common goals. To learn or improve the skill set, we must be willing to change. The healthcare world is constantly changing, so we must be willing to change, practice change behaviors, and receive feedback regarding our processes, our progresses, and regarding our improvement. Authentic leadership. Shirley relates 5 distinguishing characteristics of authentic leadership. 1 is purpose. They understand their own purpose and passions as a result of ongoing self-reflection and self-awareness. 2 is values. They think they link between the purpose and passion by having congruence in beliefs and actions. 3 is heart. They care for themselves and the people they lead, and their compassion genuine. Relationships. They build valuable relationships and establishing connections with others, not to receive reward, but rather to strengthen the human connection. And 5 is self-discipline. They practice self-discipline by incorporating balance into their personal and professional lives. 12 is thought leadership. This sort of leadership refers to any situation in which the individual or group of individuals convince others to consider a new idea, product, or way of looking at things. The idea of thought leaders are typically future-oriented and make significant impact. This, along with other focus problems, makes them especially valuable to individuals and organizations alike. Organizations such as Blue Cross Blue Shield were early thought leaders in 1920s. Reflective thinking and practice. Technological innovations continue to change the face of healthcare, and the pace of such innovations continue to increase exponentially. For example, wireless communication, computer charting, and the barcode scanning medications have greatly affected the practice of nursing. Reflective thinking and practice is required by the nurse leaders to be more flexible and very responsible to change. The nurse leader must continually adapt to changes because the world is always changing, and so the face of medicine will always be changing as well. This is because some of the practices are not working anymore, and we want a more desirable outcome, so the nurse leaders have to be willing to change and think about change as well for the hospital. Continue. A nurse leader, we must look back at what we know and believe in using evidence-based practice and research to help us learn more. The 2 questions that can help us do this is, how can you bring the power of reflection to bear on your day-to-day work? How can you amplify the effectiveness of your decision-making and empowerment your team to step up and participate in the decision-making process? Using the 2 questions while in practice can help the nurse leaders increase their reflective practice. We must do this to see what we could do better or could have done better. What worked, what we did to do. Did we do everything we could do for the patient? Did we amplify the decision-making process? And did it help empower the team? All these answers from the 2 questions will help us become a better nurse and strengthen our leadership skills as nurses. Quantitative leadership. When we think about quantitative leadership, we need to be thinking about how to communicate from the nurse manager effects to the environment of the hospital and to the patient's health care. We must work together to make good working environments and good patient outcomes. Change is constant and will always be in the medical field. You must be able to adapt, and the quantum leadership indicates that. The quantum leadership also indicates that we must have a leader that can quickly adapt and make changes very quickly if needed. Rapid changes occur and the inter-organizational conflict is high. When dealing with quantum leadership, the nurse should be able to adapt to change quickly. The nurse leader has to be able to address the present to help our future conflicts. We as nurses have to be able to deal with crises when they arise and changes when they arise. We have to keep organized and be very operational to maintain our patient's health. Also to keep the status of the healthcare facility in good status. Quantum leadership suggests that the environmental and context in which people work is complex and dynamic, and that has a direct impact on the organization's productivity. Transition from industrial age leadership to relationship age leadership. During this time, the main focus of leadership was centered around driving maximum production. Technical skills were of high value because the heavy emphasis on outperforming the competition. Everything was centered around efficiency. According to Convey, the drivers of economic prosperity of the time were machines and capital. The more you had, the more prosperous you would become. Leadership was seen in much simpler terms, usually as someone who monitored workers and tightly controlled their actions. Managers mainly relied on the concept of reward and punishment to motivate those beneath them and drive performances. Because this era was mainly focused on machine-oriented, people were viewed as part of the industrial machine. They were also seen like a part that was needed for the machine to function, but also easily replaceable. In relationship age, workers have much more freedom as opposed to the command and control workplace of the past. This requires a very different set of leadership skills. Managers must foster a good relationship with their people as opposed to simply threatening or rewarding them based on performance. Leadership is now more of a trusteeship than a position. People are viewed in a much more humane manner, and this is requiring leaders that are sensitive and can understand different people's unique situations. Because job performances and efficiency will never not be important to managers. Now managers are faced with the task of integrating this into new, more person-centered workforces. Leaders must use encouragement and inspiration when being leaders. Integrating leadership roles and management functions in the 21st century. As discussed in the previous slide, managers must find a way to blend modern concepts with the old concepts of driving maximum performance. Leaders need to be able to balance industrial age leadership with relationship age skills. They must be able to navigate a dynamic working environment where those skills are constantly evolving. Leaders should be able to make changes in light of better methods as they are discovered. Leading in management in the 21st century will be more complicated and advanced than it was in the past. This will undoubtedly require managers and leaders with much higher skill set than seen before. And that is our works cited page. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact any of us or reply on our post. Thank you.